But one thing that we've been seeing a lot of is this geographical equality conversation of where you're located, especially for the last 12 months. And I think that that's going to be a shift that we see matters less because so many of these programs went online. So for example, we've been members of Silicon Valley Robotics, but many of their programs were in person. And as an early stage startup, yes, maybe I could fly out there 4 times a year or something like that, but I can't be there every week. And really, then you get to opportunity cost of I'm going for a 1-hour meeting that's eating up 2 days of my time. And so there's been so many programs that we've been able to participate in thanks to essentially Zoom. And I mean, you read about the exodus from Silicon Valley. And on the one hand, everyone's worried. How can you be worried about people leaving in a place where there's already a housing shortage? That sounds like a solution to a problem, not a problem, right? Like they're already overcrowded. Some of the crowd is going to go somewhere else. But I mean, the converse of that is that crowd I know is having influence on some of these regions they're moving, and there's all sorts of cultural shifts and issues that I know are arising. So I am cognizant of there's no such thing as everybody wins, right? Those people are going places and influencing the places that they're going. But I think that the notion of, maybe 3 days in the office, 2 days virtual, you don't have to live in town where you work, will continue allowing programs and pitches and meetings and get-togethers to be on Zoom that used to not be, and really, benefit, especially startups like us. Like if you're a massive PwC and one person's job is to go to every meeting in California, and a second person's job is to go to every meeting in Colorado, and a third person's job, right? Like you have that infrastructure, great. But when you're, 3-4 people trying to make it happen on a small budget, without Zoom, we would have to pick and choose a lot more. So that's been really good.
I love the fact that the company's opening up to remote, not only with courses, classes, programs, work in general. We've been like you. Riderflex has been remote since the beginning. Like we used Zoom before Zoom was cool.
Right.
And but I love the fact that there's so many things, and not to go down a rabbit hole here on remote stuff, but I just think it's a huge benefit in so many different areas. The talent pool when you're recruiting for your company, you're recruiting not just nationally, you're recruiting globally for talent.
It's like that notion in Good to Great where he goes, you gotta have the right people on the bus. First who, then what. With remote work, it's first who, then where. Right? You don't worry about where. It goes back to first find who. Whereas if you're hyper focused on the water cooler and having everybody stand around it, it's first where, then who.
I totally agree.
There are arguments that I know for me, I live by myself. In the house by myself. Like the highlight of my day is to go pick up packages at our office and say hi to somebody, or like go to the supermarket and talk to a cashier to have human contact without a 30 millisecond delay. But like at the same time, I think so. The social animal in me wants that water cooler conversation, that shooting
a little bit of it, right? Yeah.
And when you're on Zoom, right, I've noticed people who are never late are late for Zoom meetings because we all pack our schedules so much that the meeting ends and you have 12 seconds to bio break and get more water and then go right back at it. So in essence, Zoom fatigue, I don't know if it's fatigue from the Zoom as, coupled with, you don't have 10 minutes between classes because the instructor's like, we'll go to 59. Next instructor says, everybody should be here. Let's start. Right. Like it's all just,
you do have to, I have purposely, so I block my calendar now. I'll have certain 30-minute, 15-minute or an hour, even for me, like, so between 11:30 and 12:30 Mountain Time every day, like you can't get me. That's I eat my lunch, I walk my dog, I go around the block, I go to pick up a package, whatever, like I get away from my desk
Right.
for a little bit. If you don't block your time, especially in the Zoom world, you're right. It's back to back to back, and you can't even go to the restroom. You're like trying to run to the restroom real quick, get some water, get a cup of coffee, boom, you're back. Yeah, it's fatigue. You got to be careful how that works. It is
Exactly.
interesting. It is interesting that you missed the people piece a little bit, right? You do miss the water cooler conversation, but it almost forces me. It has forced me to become more engaged with my neighborhood. Like I notice I talk to my neighbors that I live close to more when I see them outside. If I'm stepping out on my back porch with a cup of coffee and I see my neighbor and he's in his backyard, I'm like, hey, what's going on, Grant? How you doing? Like I never used to do that before. Like we never had
Oh,
those
for sure. You
conversations,
appreciate
you know?
the meaningless, and I mean it as just
Yeah,
a statement, not that they didn't have meaning, but the
right.
anecdotal, the UPS guy giving you a package is the highlight, right? Where it's like, hey, how you doing? Those little things that we all took for granted before.
I do, I do,
Um,
I do also think it's huge, and I don't want to. I know we're going down. We've spent time on this remote thing. Just what it does for the planet and the highways and the traffic and the pollution and all of that. I mean, it truly frees up the highways for the people that actually do need to drive, like for the electrician that actually does need to get on the road and go somewhere, right?
exactly. Not
For
to
the
mention the
construction,
carbon dip,
the car, yeah,
but
all of that. It is good in a lot of ways. I do think we will look back. In fact, I think me and you may have talked about this on the first time we were on the show. I do think we will look back on society and say to ourselves, like, holy shit, like we used to make human beings drive an hour so that they could go into a giant building and open a laptop and sit at a cubicle. Like we actually used to do that. Like, why did we do that? I think that's going to be a conversation. If you think today's tip or guest interview can help someone you know, please share this with them. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe to our channel and hit the like button. The Riderflex podcast features entrepreneurs, business executives, and the stories behind how they got there, as well as daily tips on career advice and job interviewing. You can visit riderflex.com to learn more about us and get information and pricing on the recruiting and consulting services we provide. Thanks so much for listening and have a great day.